So welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I would like to just welcome Wes from HBAR Foundation, Amira joining from Solana Foundation, and Austin from Regen Foundation. Thank you so much, dear friends, for being here. We love what you bring for the ecosystem, and we are absolutely excited to bring all of the work that you do to this amazing audience that is out here. The way we put together this session is it's about 3 to 5 minutes for each of the speakers, where we would love for you to share about what's happening in your part of the ecosystem, how you are looking at 2023 in terms of not just grants, but really building with the builders out there. That's what we really want you to share with the community out here, because all of us are really focused on building in this market. We would love for you to share where can people find you, any numbers, any figures, any particular areas of interest, any specific thesis that you're looking to build for the coming year. All of those signals that you would love to share with the community, we invite you to share them here. We have this amazing set of builders out here from ReFi DAO and from across the world. And in no particular order, I'm going to invite Wes to please start us off on this. Wes, please share your thoughts. All yours, sir.
Thank you all. I just appreciate everyone being here, and thanks for the ReFi DAO for putting this together and having me. So for those who don't know me, my name is Wes Geisenberger. I help lead the Sustainable Impact Fund with a great team here at the HBAR Foundation. We spend a lot of time focusing on how we can build the sustainability economy and work in the Hedera ecosystem. So Hedera, for those who don't know, is a public layer 1 network. Some of the things that you may not be aware of from a Hedera perspective is it's not just a smart contract platform, but it has many other services, ways to audit data and log information, native tokenization. So you can do tokenization without a smart contract. Of course, smart contracts are EVM based and you can do tokenization with them. And there's some unique technical properties around fairness. But I'm going to stop with the technology there at that primitive level and talk a little bit about governance. So from a governance perspective, Hedera is really committed to sustainability. And part of the reason is because of the focus of our governing council, which is the folks who run the initial set of nodes and help make some technical operational decisions for the network, including also deciding how we distribute certain elements of treasury, which is how we got to the Sustainable Impact Fund, which is supported by the Hedera Treasury when Hedera Treasury allocated a market development fund for the HBAR Foundation to exist, and helping create the Sustainable Impact Fund as part of it. And these folks who run the governing council are Fortune 500s or blue chip universities like London School of Economics. You have folks like Google. You have folks like Amira, a large bank, DLA Piper, a large law firm. And these folks are all thinking about sustainability in their organizations because they're buyers of things like carbon credits. They think about how they have consumption concerns around the natural assets that they consume, whether it's water, or how they think about biodiversity and those liabilities there. And they understand that building these markets is important for them to improve their standing, whether it's through credits after they've looked at mitigating and reducing, but they see this as a strategic opportunity from a distributed ledger technology perspective. And at the Sustainable Impact Fund, what we focus on is building the sustainability economy in an auditable, data discoverable, and ultimately liquid way. And our mission is really to bring the balance sheet of the planet to the public ledger. And this is that mission that they're supportive of. The focus of that mission, though, it needs to have a little more granular goals. We try to make sustainability finance auditable. That's really the first goal that we look at. Digitize and open source methodologies, scale validation and verification, try to discover a global climate asset, and ultimately a carbon price is kind of a subset of that, and make ESG reporting credible. And we have those institutional demand hubs to buy some of the assets that are created that are driven by a lot of these climate-focused projects, but we also work across the UN SDGs. And so some of the investments that we've made over the last year are focused on digital MRV and this tool called the Guardian, which actually has been a 3+ year project in the making it easier to digitize and open source methodologies in such a way that you only have to spend a few $1,000s in a few weeks if you know the methodology and you want to digitize that project and have a map of all the roles, the actors who fulfill those roles, and the data that they produce linked to an auditable unit of outcome, whether it's a biodiversity metric like the STAR metric, or whether it's a metric ton of carbon captured, sequestered, removed, following a series of methodologies. And those can be both digital processes that map to today's set of rules in the world that aren't fully digitized, or it can be a fully digitized process where you have fully digital verification, for example. And with folks across our ecosystem doing that, but there's also some really interesting projects on fully open source marketplaces. And so one of the cool announcements that we made earlier this year, we talked about what is an automated regression market maker? How do we actually trade and get liquidity and facilitate the settlement of unique units of value across large quantities, hundreds of thousands of metric ton purchases by companies in the market? And yesterday, we actually, through our ecosystem, a partner named Tolem open sourced this marketplace. And we have folks who are building open source carbon forward platforms, open source green bond platforms, and many other points of infrastructure. And I only have a couple minutes left, but the goal towards 2023 is taking those platforms and applications built on top of it and extending infrastructure where we see gaps, but building where it's cheaper to build, because we don't need to build another set of core services for a marketplace if there's something already open source there. If you want to build a marketplace, you don't need to spend millions of dollars on Hedera to do it. There's a full open source code base where there's probably a good chunk of that that's reusable. There's a series of open source policies, dozens of them, where those digitized methodologies are made available by the community as part of everything that we do. So if you say, hey, I have an agroforestry project that I want to see if there's something out there, you can go look. And there's probably a methodology there, a cook stove methodology, it's there. And you can go down the list and you can say renewable energy credits, maybe carbon emissions accounting, that's all there. And you can go take these things off the shelf. We call them a policy library, if you will, out of the Guardian GitHub repo, and you can start working. And this idea that, we can build, it's because it's easier to build, we can build on what's important. We don't have to spend millions of dollars on these really complex topics like DMRV. We can spend a few weeks, a few $1,000s. We can spend a few weeks deploying a marketplace and testing it and building it for our own. And what we can do in 2023 is focus on the outcomes, whether it's in carbon emissions, offsets, biodiversity, water rights, in building new systems of value and outcomes that actually are mapping into that real world. And whether it's a sensor-based process or a governance project around how we make this more local, that's all what we want to see over the next year. And we're excited for folks to come to us, talk to us about grants and open source technology. One thing I'd also invite folks to consider is coming to our community calls, where we actually manage the Guardian roadmap in a fully open way, which is something that the foundation has funded. And we have over 100 participants just focusing on that, and another 40 to 50 participants, I think at least, maybe not more, focusing just on taxonomies in these markets. How do we define a methodology or policy? And so there's opportunities for folks, whether you come from an academic background, whether you come from a builder background, from a technical perspective, or you just want to learn more and contribute. Those are all different opportunities, and we encourage you to engage with our ecosystem in that way.
Love it, man. You crushed it. So appreciate the really cogent focus you guys have in the space in publicly verifiable impact. The role that DMRV plays in scaling regeneration is super clear to me, and I love how much you guys have invested in that. And it sounds like there's some people already digging into GitHub docs and looking further into this. So very grateful to have you, Wes. I'll switch it over to you, Amira. We had a short but awesome meeting in Lisbon a few months ago, just before the madness of FTX. And it feels like there's a lot of enthusiasm growing in the ReFi space on Solana. We've got a number of builders and founder circles who are super active, building great projects there, and would just love to hear a quick 5-minute update in terms of what's going on at Solana Foundation, how regeneration fits into that mix, and anything else that's relevant for people in this space to know about what you're doing.
Cool. This is so exciting. The energy is always amazing to be hanging out with ReFi DAO. So for those of you I don't know, my name is Amira, and I run public policy at the Solana Foundation. And part of that, it includes the work happening on climate. And so I'll back up. I'll talk a little about what's going on at the Solana Foundation. So the goals of the Solana Foundation are basically to help secure, grow, and encourage the decentralization of the Solana network. And so that has a lot of different layers to it. One of the key ones is making sure that people are building amazing use cases on top of the Solana blockchain that are actually real and help demonstrate the value of what blockchain is. And so I think a huge part of that is helping demonstrate the excitement around what's going on in ReFi and the potential to help create amazing use cases related to helping save our planet and building those on the Solana blockchain. Solana as a blockchain itself is known for being really fast, really cheap, really energy efficient. So it's a proof of stake network that utilizes an algorithm called proof of history that helps it go incredibly quickly, and also transaction parallelization. Those are sort of the two key pieces of it that make it a really, really efficient network. And it has one of the fastest growing developer networks out there, and there's a pretty robust developer network. So there's about 20,000 active GitHub repos on Solana right now, and a lot of people building a range of things. That said, the ReFi ecosystem on Solana is pretty young. And so as I started digging into the space, probably the middle of this year, I realized, like, man, this chain has a lot of potential to be helpful in the ReFi ecosystem. I think this would be incredible to build out on Solana, not just because I think the chain itself is perfect for a lot of the use cases that help at the intersection of ReFi and DeFi in particular, but also because passionately, I want to be able to see this space grow, and I want to see it grow on this chain. And so what we are doing right now is we're focusing on how do we build the building blocks of what it means to build a thriving ReFi ecosystem on Solana that has a few components to it. One is we got to get tokenized carbon and take tokenized nature-based assets on the Solana ecosystem. There's a number of work streams that are happening right now to help make that happen. But I think as we think about what we want to see the community do and what we are eager to help with, that is thing one, right? You need the foundational layer. You need some kind of token so that you can use it and use it as a building block for all these different types of use cases of what's happening in ReFi. Second, there is a amazing ReFi ecosystem on Solana right now, but I think we just need more people to manage the community, more people to build it out, more enthusiasm around like helping set that infrastructure. The way that we like to do things at the Solana Foundation is we really focus on how can we push things to be as decentralized and as community-based as early as possible. So like I see Akshay, for example, on this call, who's involved in Super Team. Super Team is an organization totally independent of the Solana Foundation, but we help sort of support and get off the ground. And the idea is Super Team does a lot of business development for the Solana blockchain completely independently as a community-run organization. It's really, really cool. I would love to get to that point with ReFi and Solana, whereas there's this whole ecosystem and amazing community that is doing a bunch of this work around helping foment the Solana ReFi ecosystem. And I really, I really appreciate the leadership of ReFi DAO, of folks at 12 Butterflies who help organize the event at Breakpoint. But as I think about grants that I want to give out, partnerships that I want to build, I really want people to help continue to build that ecosystem and community and create the infrastructure behind it. And then the third thing, going back to tokenized carbon, is I want to figure out how we can bootstrap demand for these nature-based use cases on Solana as we're actually getting this, as we're getting these resources on chain. So as an example, there's a really amazing protocol out there called Sunrise Stake that basically allows you to stake on Solana and will create staking rewards that are aimed at nature-based credits. I believe Sparrow's protocol does this on other chains as well. That's a really amazing way to help bootstrap demand for nature-based credits on Solana while we are trying to figure out how to get those credits on chain. And so if you have interesting ideas for how to bootstrap that demand, I definitely want to talk to you because we can help dual track the creation of that marketplace.
That was absolutely perfect. Thanks so much. Love it. Yeah, and really appreciate the demand towards nature-based assets and recognizing the role that these building blocks play in scaling a ReFi ecosystem and having partnerships with ecosystem partners who can grow it out. Like I think the Super Team's a super fascinating model. Can't wait to jam on this with you, Akshay, and see what they're doing. And yeah, share a little bit in the new year about what we're thinking. I'll take the conversation over to our friends at Regen Foundation. I know we've got both Austin and Revathi here. I think Austin, you're the one teed up to give us a 5-minute update on what's going on in Regen. And I think there's some really cool cross-pollination things that could be happening here across the grant funders in this ecosystem here today. So take the floor.
Hi, everyone. I'm Austin Wade Smith. I'm a director at the Regen Foundation, and I'm here with Revathi. So Rave, jump in whenever you like if you want to add color to something or to go into a little bit more depth. Yeah, so the Regen Foundation is the nonprofit arm of the larger Regen network. We're an NGO that in many ways is responsible to make sure that the ReFi project that is the Regen network is community owned and governed by the stewards of the planet and the ReFi ecosystem that we claim to serve. So we have a responsibility to ensure that through community ownership and governance that we're basically informing a public of land stewards, regenerators, across a really diverse set of spaces to be informed and participate in community ownership and governance in the process. And the primary way that that's played out is through what we call the endowment, which I think is a kind of evolution of grants in a way. And I'd like to all unpack it a little bit. I think that broadly speaking, what regenerative finance is trying to do is go beyond a kind of grant-based or philanthropic model around regeneration and actually like rewrite value on a fundamental level so that ecological well-being and economic well-being are not incommensurable with each other, but in fact, fundamentally aligned. So I think we'd like to get to a place where we're not talking about like donations or philanthropic or even grants, but we're talking about values been rewritten in this fundamental way that we understand that living ecosystems have value, not just in the form of timber, but as a living forest. So the first maybe step is to talk about, let's unpack what grants and like the way money moves now in relation to regeneration, and maybe like align on the fact that what we're trying to do is get past the need to use these mechanisms because value has been rewritten in this fundamental way. And I think a lot of regenerative finance projects are basically built upon doing that project. And we are like really hungry, have a big appetite for ecosystem partnerships to like build together in the space. Specifically, Regen Network is built on top of the Cosmos SDK. The for-profit R&D entity is one of the main maintainers of the Cosmos SDK. But we're not here to be chain particular. We're really trying to be agnostic and support the sort of thriving and growth in the ecosystem of high integrity, high tonnage credits, not simply carbon credits, but a more holistic evolution of them. And I would like to think that the Regen Network is in some ways synonymous with bringing really high integrity, that we like, if in the carbon market, like 3% of carbon credits can actually verifiably prove they have beneficial impact on the biosphere. And like, we want the credits that we're issuing and the MRVs that we're developing, the DAOs that are supporting this process, to be servicing the highest quality integrity regenerative credits possible. And that's really like the flag that we're waving in a major way. And in order to not make this something where it's just a speculative market, like can so easily happen with a lot of delegated proof of stake governance models, basically it becomes a plutocracy. We have the responsibility at the foundation to delegate 35% of the total token holding power to regenerative communities in whatever form that takes. That's hardware developers, software developers, activists, advocates, land stewards, sea stewards or ocean stewards. And sort of embedded in that, it's not a Trojan horse, but really what's embedded in that is the idea of taking DAOs and understanding the sort of model around the potential transparency of decentralized ledgers, but also the notion of governance and decentralized decision-making that come with DAOs, and bringing those as a capacity to like regenerative communities, whether those be ReFi, like everyone on this call, like you all already know, but there's a lot of you don't. And to have like, to allow this endowment project to be a way of like DAOs in our mind are a continuation of the commons, which has been a model for regenerative stewardship since time began. And I don't think this is a new thing. We've got some new tools that can really do some badass stuff. But the models of like human and ecological interaction based on the commons has been around for a long time. And we're trying to like incubate and support grassroots regenerative organizations with DAO tools. And we're like here to do that across every domain and work with folks who are interested in that. And Pranav is really active in that. Revathi is really active in that. Yes. And this is a bi-regional driven model. We have so much moving and shaking. I'm talking with Wes later today, which is exciting. We're really dedicated towards developing like just DMRV and participatory verification systems and models. I think that that's really, really exciting. And I guess the kind of call to action is like in a hard economic times right now, like I think we should be leaning in on interoperability and working together and not just working siloed in parallel, but we have to like huddle because it's hard right now. And that kind of pressure, I think, makes the community stronger. And we're like so there for that.
Love it. Thank you so much. Yeah, you guys are a real pillar in the space. And I'm really excited to see what this market brings in terms of relationships across chains. There's a lot going on here. So thanks so much for your time.